Forget gurus. Forget anyone claiming to be an online business expert without going through the challenges of entrepreneurship themselves. The Real Money, Real Business podcast is here to prove the best insights in online business comes from your fellow online business builders. We dig into stories of entrepreneurs selling their business on the Empire Flippers marketplace so that you can learn how they made their business profitable, how they overcame obstacles, and what lessons they learned in their online journey. If you want to take your business and your knowledge to the next level, you've come to the right podcast. Let's get started.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Real Money, Real Business podcast. I'm Michelle, and today we have Josh on the show who has his business listed on the Empire Flippers marketplace. Hey Josh, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm great. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. And I really want to thank you for making the time to come on today. I'm looking forward to learning more about your business. But before we dive in, let's go over a brief summary of it. So it's a display advertising, digital product, and affiliate business in the hobbies niche created in February 2017. The average revenue for the business is $5,374 per month, and it makes an average of $4,793 per month in net profit. Included in this sale is a primary domain with all site content and files, a secondary domain with all site content and files, social media accounts and groups for Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, and YouTube, and an email list with 98,302 subscribers. For everyone listening, you can visit empireflippers.com/marketplace and search for listing 56741 to learn more about this business. Or you can unlock this listing to start your due diligence if you're interested in purchasing this asset. So now that we've gone over the business, let's find out a little bit more about the seller. Josh, what can you tell us about your background in starting and running online businesses?
Yeah, I've been doing online businesses for almost 10 years now. I started back in, I think it was maybe 2012 or 2014, somewhere in there. And I just started with, I was like looking for ways to make money online, and I had a number of different projects. And I remember I took a little course and built like a little one-page website about GoPro cameras, which was, at the time that was like really popular. It was GoPro cameras versus Contour cameras, which was the main competitor. And I put up some e-zine articles. For anybody who's been in this space for a long time, they might know what I'm talking about, but I just put up some articles on some free websites where you could freely post, additional articles. I wrote everything myself. And over time, it started to trickle in a little bit of money. Like it started ranking for my main keyword, and I started making, $40, $50 a month. And I was really stoked I almost didn't even expect it to work. That was a really big deal at the time. And that really put a lot of fire in me to continue to find other websites to build. And eventually I really built a whole business around this. At one point I had about 40 different sites that I was running. I've sold a lot of those sites on Empire Flippers before. I've done a little bit of buying and selling since then. And really these days, I'm actually kind of moving out of this space. I'm back in school now. I'm kind of pursuing other things in my life. For the most part, I have a business partner that's really running my primary business. And I'm still doing a few things on the side. For example, this site that we're talking about today is kind of a side project that I'm wrapping up right now.
Well, it's really profitable for a side project. So what can you tell us, what was it about this particular business that attracted you?
So the history of this business, I think this is a good time to go into that a little bit, and it'll help kind of answer the question as well. The history of this business is I bought this business with an ex-business partner a few years ago, and we bought it from the woman who had started it. She had started it herself. At the time, it was kind of a personal website for her and a personal project, and we really saw the opportunity there to build it into more of a community, kind of more of a publishing website, kind of a magazine style website that wasn't built around one person. So we were able to get a really good deal on the site because it wasn't really sellable at the time. It wasn't really something that she could have put on a marketplace because it was too much built around her. But we saw the potential for it. we were also obviously taking a little risk at the time because maybe we couldn't, make that transition and all her readers, once she left, all her readers would leave. But we spent about a year working quite diligently on making that transition, and we were quite successful. We weren't sure, but when we provided people really good content about the space, people loved it. And we were able to grow the business. And then we sold it about a year later. We sold it to other people who took it over and, did various things with it, grew it in various ways. But part of the condition of the sale was there was a whole earnout schedule and a kind of a complicated sale with that buyer. There was an investor who was involved, and we got some of the money up front and some of the money over time. And then what happened past summer is that the investor that was involved decided not to finish the payments and instead give us back the site instead, which is part of the how the deal was structured, is that we're able to do that. So at that point, this summer, kind of this fall around September, I took the site back over, and I've been I spent a little while kind of getting it ready to sell and then listed it on the Empire Flippers Marketplace in December. But in the meantime, I've still been working on it and really getting it kind of stabilized into more of a growth kind of trajectory from where it had been. So that's kind of what's brought me back into this particular business. And, I talked about doing it as kind of a side project. I still have other things going on in my life, but on the side, I've been kind of working on making this business as sellable as possible. So, hopefully it's appealing to somebody who's ready to take it over and either, sit on it. And we can talk more about this, but I think it's a really stable business. So somebody who's wanting just that passive income, or somebody who's wanting to kind of put the investment or sweat equity into it in order to kind of bring it up to the next level from where it is.
Well, I'm actually really glad that you brought that up. Why don't you walk us through a little bit about what you've done since reacquiring the business to bring a little bit more stability to how it's run?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I reacquired the business, a few things were the site was a little bit in decline. And, you'll see that on the earnings a little bit where, like last spring, for example, the earnings were kind of fairly steady at being pretty high. And then they declined over the summer. And I think, unfortunately, this is the kind of thing that can happen when investors give a deal back, they neglect it for a couple months at the end. So initially, what I was doing was really just trying to get it back to a stable place. So one of the first things we did was we ran like a Black Friday promotion to try kind of re-engage people with the site and re-engage people with, particularly with purchasing some of the products. That was pretty successful. You'll see kind of a spike in earnings in November. And when I had initially listed the site with Empire Flippers, I think that looked good. It was like, oh, okay, like the earnings are back up, but are they going to stabilize? We really don't know yet. And I did a number of things. So I restarted a weekly newsletter, and that was pretty significant, re-engaging people with the site. That there's a big email list, and it basically hadn't been emailed for a little while. And I started just doing a weekly, here's some content that you might be interested in. And the community was pretty responsive to that. I also started working with the Facebook group some to re-engage people and to keep new people coming into the funnel, keeping new people starting to be able to engage with the site and with the products that we sell. And then I've started exploring some other social media stuff, like particularly Pinterest. With this site, Pinterest is a big channel. I don't know big, but it's one of the channels that a decent amount of traffic comes from. So I've started to look into how do we increase Pinterest traffic. So those are really the primary ways that I've been able to stabilize the site and stabilize the earnings at kind of a higher level than they had initially declined in September, October. And I think at this point, like the potential buyers will see that the earnings are pretty stable. Are we allowed to talk about the specific numbers on this call?
We could, yeah, for numbers, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So the net profit is pretty stable between about like 4,200 and around 5,600, kind of in that range. I expect it to really stay there or to start kind of creeping up a little bit as I continue to implement, new things like more Pinterest engagement, for example, then it could start kind of creeping up from there. And as display ad spend grows over the course of the year, which is typical, I would expect it to start creeping up more from there. But I do think it's pretty solidly stabilized since it was initially listed on the Empire Flippers website.
Well, that's excellent. So, for anyone who is new to the business listening to this, do you mind running us through just the ways that this site makes money?
Yeah, so one of the strengths of this business is how diverse the income streams are. In a lot of the websites that you'll find listed on Empire Flippers and a lot of the websites that I've been engaged with in the past, there might be really like one revenue stream, like, oh, like people come from Google and then they click through to Amazon and that's how you make your money. And that's fine as long as both of those channels are, stay consistent. But sometimes, Amazon changes their commission rates or Google has a change, and all of a sudden, I've had websites that go from making $5,000 a month to like $500 a month just overnight. A website like this, I think one of its strengths is that it's really diversified and it's going to be much more resilient to change over time. You have a big email list that's not reliant on any other traffic source. And even though there are traffic sources, there's Pinterest traffic, there's a big Facebook group that's quite engaged. There's, of course, traffic from Google. And then on the revenue side, like you asked about, there's a big portion of the revenue is made up from display advertising, just people engaging with the site and viewing ads that are served through AdThrive, which is a high quality advertising platform that just kind of is completely done for you. So I don't have to do anything to optimize the ads, which is quite nice. That's all done for me. And then we sell two different ebooks, which are kind of the primary, or at least there's a kind of a beginner ebook, which is the primary way somebody comes into the funnel. And as soon as they sign up for the newsletters, as soon as they give us our email, they go straight into a page where they see a discount for that ebook, like a pretty significant discount for buying that ebook. And it converts pretty well. There's a pretty decent number of people who bought the ebook at that point. Oh, that reminds me, this is another thing that I did also to improve the site. There were some problems with that part of the funnel that I was able to work out, and that also increased ebook sales notably from where they had been. So people buy the ebook, then over time, as they engage with the content, and the ebook is quite good quality. I think our refund rate is like below 1%. And then we offer free refunds, but people who buy the ebook really tend to like it and find it useful. So there's a few other products that we have to sell them at that point. We have another ebook, which is a little bit more advanced. And then we have a couple of video courses that are a little bit higher price point and also kind of take them deeper into the space. And that's something that we see, we're emailing people every week now with this weekly newsletter, and we see people who have been on the email list for a while. They'll come back after a couple months and purchase another product or another course. And this is also something where, if you as a future buyer wanted to take this business to the next level, like one of the opportunities I think that's there's kind of like an endless amount of content that you could provide, kind of going for people wanting to go deeper into this space. So whether it's, videos or more ebooks, and whether you create that content yourself or whether you commission it from people in the community, which we've done some of before, I think that there's kind of like an endless amount of opportunity there for new content in that funnel. As people engage with the current content, they see it's really good and they want to continue.
Well, that's excellent. So, are you adding new content to the actual site right now?
No, it's been about a year since new content's been added. I think also is a big opportunity. I think that probably accounts for the difference in the earnings that you see like last year and the earnings that we have on the site right now. And this is also like the way that the site is priced, it's priced based on the earnings right now. So you're buying the site with the assumption that no new content is going to be added. And this is the expectation that you should have for earnings if new content isn't added. And what we do, like with the weekly newsletter, for example, is we're just going back through old content. Like there is hundreds and hundreds of articles on this site. There's really a lot of content, a lot of really good content that most of the people like on the email list, for example, haven't engaged with or they haven't revisited in a year. And it's the kind of niche where you can really revisit content. It doesn't really get dated. It's not like news type of content. So it doesn't really get dated. And I think if you wanted a pretty passive income kind of site, I think that you could basically not publish new content. You could really sit on what's currently there and just kind of recycle it through like email newsletters and stuff. That's what I've been doing so far. And I think there's an opportunity to start publishing new content. In the past, what we've done is we've just engaged like community members, like from our Facebook group, from the email list. There's people who specifically like we have the contact information for, they've written for us in the past. And there's also new people coming in all the time. And we've had great success in the past with them writing content for the site, good quality content. And then that's like another way to bring more people in, kind of engage with more stuff and hopefully also be hitting new keywords and stuff in Google. So yeah, to summarize and to answer your question specifically, we're not adding new content right now. New content hasn't really been added for about a year. And I think the business is just fine without new content because it's very evergreen and it's an opportunity to get started in adding new content.
Well, I was wondering because you spoke about how this is a very passive business. So what does a typical week look like for you while running this business?
Yeah, right now it's pretty chill. I have to say, right now, the biggest task I have right now is building that email newsletter. It takes about 30 minutes for me to put together. Sometimes what I'll end up doing is I'll just batch it into like, I'll spend an hour or two once a month to kind of just set up all of the newsletters that are going to go out for that month. And when I batch it, it's even a little bit more efficient than the 30 minutes. So that part's pretty straightforward. And then I guess the other thing that I'm doing is approving people for the Facebook group. We've just started. There's a piece when people request to join the Facebook group, and this Facebook group has like 100,000 members in it. So it's quite big. There's a lot of spammers who try to come in, but I've done a lot. Facebook has a lot of options to kind of automatically filter out people who might be spammers, like if they don't answer the questions. But the other thing that we've done with the Facebook group, and I've just started using this recently, is that we've added a question that asks people if they'd like to opt into our newsletter and our free beginner's email course. And the majority of people who respond to the question just give us their email address. And for a long time, since I took over the business, I actually wasn't using those email addresses. I just didn't have a system for bringing those into the email autoresponder. And I've just started doing that now. So there's another source of potential growth. People have the option to just say no thanks, to just opt out and still join the Facebook group. But a lot of people, the majority of people, are giving the email address because they want to be engaged with the content. So in terms of other stuff I'm doing, I try to do that maybe 2 or 3 times a week. That takes, 5 minutes just to kind of scroll through and approve people. And I have a little plugin set up to bring emails from the Facebook to the email newsletter. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else. Oh, I guess the other thing is I just check the email. I just check the support email address. And every once in a while, somebody has trouble when they purchased an ebook and it hasn't been delivered. That's all set up. That's all automated. So it's not something that I'm needing to be engaged with on, an hourly or even a daily basis. But a couple times a week, I'll just check that email. Every once in a while, there's a quick support thing to sort out. Or, a lot of times you receive like just really nice emails like, oh, this is such a great piece of content. Thanks for sharing it or whatever. I like to just respond to those and, just say like, hey, thanks for being a reader. And just to kind of continue engaging in a friendly manner with the community. Because I think people do see this as a little bit more of a community and not just transactional kind of business, but something to really be involved in. So I like to foster that kind of attitude with people. It's really not much. It's like probably not more than an hour a week as it stands right now.
Well, I was going to ask you, what do you think the biggest challenge will be for a buyer taking over this business?
That's a really good question. I don't anticipate really a whole lot of challenge. I mean, there's going to be a little learning curve on just making sure that they understand all the pieces, which is, of course, like, I'll walk them through that. And that would be really for any business. But there is, we're using Teachable for delivering the video courses, and we're using a different piece of software for delivering the ebooks, and just a little bit of kind of understanding how all the pieces fit together. Once they understand that description that I just gave, was like, once they understand that, it really does kind of work on its own. So until you need to mess with it because, you're expanding the business in some way, there's not a whole lot. I don't think that they'll face a whole lot of challenge. I guess I'll say that, like, if somebody's taking this over and like, hey, I'd just really like kind of a pretty passive source of income, maybe I want to put some time into this like on nights and weekends, but I still have a full-time job. I think that this is a great business for it because you can do the kind of main stuff in an hour or so a week, and it's mostly automated. And then you can just start to build on it from there. Or, of course, if somebody's ready to go full time on this and really expand it out, I think I could answer it a little bit from that point of view. We might get into this a little bit more later, but I think there's both challenge and opportunity in what somebody might do to grow the business. And that could, I'm not going to lie, like, you will face some challenges for sure. Like, there's no doubt in any kind of real business growth venture that you would do on this business. And I don't think you'd face more challenges than you'd face in any other business, but that's just always an endeavor. It's always an undertaking to grow a business. And so we could talk a little bit more about that. I think somebody just taking over this business, like, it's pretty straightforward. There's not a lot, once you have that past that initial learning curve, there's really not a lot of challenge.
Well, you've spoken a bit about some of the growth opportunities that you see for this business. So if you could just quickly summarize for a potential buyer what you see as the major growth opportunities for the site.
Yeah, absolutely. So if we look at growing revenue, the majority of the revenue right now comes from display advertising. So just getting more people on the site is probably like one avenue for growth. So to do that, I would look at publishing new content. I would look at engaging the Facebook community more and trying to get more of those people that are on the Facebook, in the Facebook group, in this big Facebook group, getting more of them on the site. So that can be through kind of content, posting more content in that Facebook group, could be through things like contests. I would look definitely at Pinterest. I've actually started to look. I haven't really implemented anything yet, but I've started to look more at like how to engage Pinterest more, how to continue that growth. And yeah, I'd look at publishing new content. I think I mentioned this a little bit before, but I think that it might be the difference between the stability that the site has right now and where it's priced right now and where it was about a year ago, which was sort of stably a bit higher revenue. I suspect that the difference may have just been weekly new articles going up weekly, which I think, that's a project, but I think it's a pretty doable project to, re-engage a few writers and have them start posting new content regularly. I think that could be a pretty worthwhile way to grow the business. And then we look at like, how do we make more revenue from the people who are already engaged? And besides just bringing them back to the site more often, maybe that's through new content. I think also there's really a lot of opportunity for more products in this space. We talked about a few products that are already on the site and making good money, but I think that there's a lot of people who've already purchased the main products that we have to sell and would be interested in purchasing more products. I'm not going to go into the specifics. I do have some specific ideas, but I would probably need to reveal the niche to talk about what specific ideas that I have. And I think, as a buyer starts engaging with the content, I imagine like a lot of ideas will come to them too.
And before we wrap up, if we can just go over, the standard questions. So are you willing to commit to a non-compete for a future owner?
Absolutely.
And how much support are you offering buyers?
I think that the standard I can't remember exactly what we said, but I think the standard thing that Empire Flippers kind of suggests that sellers do is something like 2 hour long support calls and 30 days of email support. And that's, of course, after we've done all the migration. So, there's probably going to be support stuff just even during the migration in, just, okay, here's this piece of the business, here's that piece of the business. So I'm happy to do all of that stuff. And really, it's important for me to, whoever purchases this business, I want you to be really successful with it. So anything that you need to make sure that you're kind of up and running with the business, even if that takes more than those 2 hours of calls, really no problem. Like, I'm happy to support you in making sure that you're good to go with running this business. And then past the 30 days or so of email support, once you've fully taken over the business, I'm not going to offering to come like help you run it. But if you want to run something by me, I have worked on this business for a long time because I was working on it a lot a couple of years ago. So if you want to run something by me, double check an idea that you have or something, I'm happy to help you out with that.
That's excellent. And I was wondering, are you open to negotiating something like an earnout or some other kind of deal structure?
Probably not. I'm certainly open to talking about it. Feel free to make me an offer and hopefully we can find a way to make a deal work, especially if there's some particular reason why you feel like you need an earnout or some kind of delay on a part of the payment. We can definitely talk about it. Just to set your expectations, though, kind of where I'm at, there's another owner involved on my side. They don't have any decision-making power, but they do own a stake in the business. You don't have to like negotiate with them or anything like that. They're not involved in decision-making, but doing a sort of a long delay on having this wrapped up is not really, it complicates my life in a lot of ways. So probably just doing a cash deal is going to be what makes the sale work. But like, let's talk about it. So if that's a deal breaker for you, but you really like the business for a number of reasons or something, like, don't hesitate to schedule a call with me and we can talk through what might make the deal work.
Yeah, that's completely understandable. And I'm sure that, when you can explain the circumstances to buyers who would schedule a call with you, that it would make a lot more sense. So just before we wrap up, Josh, I wanted to know, is there anything else that you would like to cover about the business that we might not have discussed?
I think we covered things pretty well. I guess I'll just say, we kind of touched on this, but I think that probably the strongest case for this site or the types of buyers who this might be the best fit for, in my opinion. And of course, if I'm not saying it and you think that you might be a good fit for you, like it probably is, and I'm probably just not thinking about it. But I think that somebody who's relatively new to this space and wants to get involved in a sort of passive-ish income opportunity, or certainly less than their 40 hours a week job, I think that this is a really interesting business for that because of its stability. It's definitely not the kind of business. Look, I'm not making any promises and there is just uncertainty in life, but it's really not the type of business that gets wiped out overnight by some little update, because it has multiple traffic channels, because it has multiple revenue sources. The income can go up and down a little, but it's relatively, for an online business, it is one of the most stable businesses that I've ever worked with in my career with online businesses. So I think that's a really big strength, and it could be a really good project for somebody who's looking for kind of replacing their job or supplementing their job with a sort of a passive-esque kind of income stream. I think that's a really good case for it. And then the other thing is, if you have a little portfolio of sites, this could be a solid one to add to it because it's really such low work to maintain and potentially has like a lot of opportunity to grow it, whether that's through, publishing a lot of new content on it, or Pinterest, or, if you're kind of like an SEO kind of wizard and can do a lot with like ranking the current content or new content higher for some of the related search terms, or if you're an email marketer and can do a lot more than just right now it's just a very, very soft pitch kind of weekly newsletter just to re-engage people with the site. If you're good at that kind of thing, I think there's really a lot of opportunity to try things, and trying those things, it really won't hurt that current revenue, like the current revenue that you're paying for. in the current pricing on Empire Flippers, doing some experiments isn't going to affect that. So that it could be a really good opportunity for somebody who's already a little bit familiar with the space and maybe has some current projects running, but think that this would be a good addition to their portfolio.
Well, I think that's a wonderful note to leave it off on. Josh, I really want to thank you for coming on and giving us an update about the business and a little bit more insight into what's been going on with it. It's been a pleasure, and I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to do this.
Absolutely. Thanks for talking to me about it. It's always a pleasure.
All right, everyone. Thanks for listening. To learn more and see if this listing has already been sold, head over to empireflippers.com/marketplace and search for listing 56741. If you're watching this on YouTube, click the link in the description to go straight to the listing. Once you've unlocked this listing, you'll be given everything you need to know about this business. So until next time, enjoy your digital journey.